Good morning, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of Market Check, brought to you by BB. There is no second best daily YouTube live stream to talk about markets. Welcome, guys. Happy Tuesday. I hope everybody is having a great week. Obviously, the coin prices have been a little bit volatile to start this week, but we're going to talk about all of that and then some. You want Bitcoin and price discovery? Well, that's too bad, because temporarily, at least, we have another altcoin extinction event on a lower time frame. But rest assured, guys, like I said, we will be talking about these. We will be looking through all of these charts. Some funny, I'm sure some sad, depends on your perspective. I always kind of enjoy these post-mortem days, but also kind of not, for obvious reasons. But we're going to have a great show. I'm Snorlax. You guys also know me as Tommy. I'm joined by Max, Unbothered Chef Jackus, and of course, our guest speaker, Donnie Dicey. So we'll welcome him back to Market Check. He is going to cook for you guys as well. Like I said, we are going to have a great show in the wake of a pretty epic dump that we had yesterday. Of course, I'm sure you're all wondering what's going to happen next. But before we can cover that, before we can talk about all of the big juicy alpha that we all have to share, as well as Donnie, I know it. You guys already know what I'm going to ask you to do, and that is hit the like button, slam the like button, smash the like button, do whatever you need to do. Maybe take out your frustrations from the last 24 hours on the like button. But I can promise you would be very appreciative if you did. And the YouTube algorithms would as well. But yeah, let's get into the meat of the show, guys. Obviously, we have had a little bit of a sell-off, in particular on altcoins. This isn't something that is, I mean, it's definitely not an abnormal event for what we've seen over the last year and a half. We've seen these huge moves down on altcoins before eventual continuation pretty much throughout the entirety of this cycle. We've seen these things happen before, or rather, while Bitcoin is beginning to enter price discovery in times like 2020. But still, it doesn't make some of these candles any easier to stomach at times. But yeah, quite a bit of lower time frame volatility as ETH once again pushed up against 4K. Bitcoin pushed up against 100K and rejected. But as I said yesterday, I really kind of view this as Bitcoin is trying to establish a value, right? Like 100K Bitcoin. It's the most important psychological level on the chart. It should not be a surprise that it's taking it a minute for us to be able to officially claim that level. But I expect when we do, the move from it will be quite rapid and quite probably pretty vertical. But right now, obviously, we are seeing a little bit of turbulence at this pretty obvious. I would say, I mean, would you guys agree that this is probably the last level of like major supply that exists on Bitcoin? Because like 100K, obvious psychological level. Above that, you're benchmarking against what? Infinity? Probably a million for Bitcoin.
And I would argue, what a coincidence, it's coming at kind of our final local or even high time frame supply for ETH, Tommy, at 4K.
Yes.
So I think once you clear that 100K and that 4K, sayonara.
People have been getting a little over their skis with the altcoin perps, a tale as old as time. We're just cleaning up a little bit of leverage, a little bit of aggressive positioning before higher. We will see when it finishes up, right? Is that going to be in January? Is that going to be maybe today? Maybe it's going to be next week. We'll talk about it on today's show. But I'd love to know what you guys are thinking in the wake of the move that we've had here over the last 24 hours. And most importantly, as I'm sure everybody in the comments is wondering, where we go next.
Yeah, great intro, Tommy. Guys, we have Donnie in the house again today, man. He's an absolute cook. He's going to cook you up something yummy. If at any point during the show you like what Donnie's saying, give him a follow. His X account is down below. If at any point during the show you're like, this guy's a goofball, I can't stand listening to what he's saying, you could feel free to send him a DM, let him know how you feel. I'm sure he'd love to chat with you about your distaste for him. He's a great guy. But anyways, he's going to cook. I've got a very high degree of confidence that he's going to cook. And I'm going to put some pressure on him today because he posted a chart that I personally I take personally, right? I found it to be insulting in a very deep level. And I asked him about it on Twitter in front of all of you guys. I was like, Donnie, did you just tweet out linear mode fib levels for Pepe? And turns out I wasn't wrong. He actually did that. And there's an official moratorium and a ban on posting linear fibs during a bull market. And I just made that rule up recently, but nonetheless, it is law. Okay. It is concrete. So Donnie, in my view, he committed a felony on Twitter. Okay. He posted linear fibs and he basically responded to me and said, in short, I don't think I can post my logarithmic fibs. People can't handle it. And I said, Donnie, rumor has it you're coming on market check. Pressure will be applied. We will observe and study logarithmic fibs today because I take linear fibs personally. I find it disrespectful. In a bull market, you simply cannot look at linear fibs, man. It just something about it, man. It just rubs me the wrong way. So Donnie is here not only to cook for you, but to right a wrong that he did on Twitter. Okay. He's here to right a wrong. So, anyways, Donnie, thanks so much for being here, man. Really appreciate you joining us. And could I get some thoughts from you? Like, have you had time to think about the mistake that you made posting linear fibs, or do you still stand by that decision?
Thanks for the awesome intro, bro. I'm happy to be here once again.
Yeah.
Bro, that linear fib, I view linear fibs in a bull market not as a take profit zone, but as a milestone. So it's kind of just like it's going to achieve that no matter what. It's kind of like here's baby step number one, the linear 1.618. So that's kind of how I was looking at Pepe. I do have a secret fib that I'm going to show, not the settings, but I'm going to show where it goes, where it leads. But before we start cooking, I did have to start with I don't know if you guys can hear this. Did you guys hear that?
That's a Red Bull, isn't it?
Yeah, you know.
It's a Red Bull. Donnie, what time is it where you
It's
reside?
5 a.m., bro, and I woke up an hour earlier because of daylight savings by accident, so time to roll.
You guys, that's the commitment. That's why Donnie keeps coming on Market Check, man. Well, beyond the alpha that he shares and that we like him, he's a good dude. It's because I am naturally drawn to people that they'll do that extra 1% that most people that think they're doing the most simply don't do. Most people, they won't get up at 4 a.m. to hop on a US-based YouTube show. But Donnie Dicey simply he's got that dog in him. He's got that dog in him. And I love that, man. It's a willingness to do things that other people won't do. This man's shotgunning Red Bull at 4 a.m. to be here to cook for you guys for free. He's got that dog in him. He's got that dog in him.
If that doesn't appreciate a like, guys, nothing does.
Okay.
I swear I'll make Donnie chart soybeans today if we don't get the likes. I'll do it. I will do it. I don't want to do it, but I'll do it.
Is my screen showing?
Yep, you're looking good. Got your trading view up right now.
All right, perfect. Yeah, I just wanted to go over some context First, I'll actually go over what's happening at the moment. I've kind of just been viewing this 2024 sort of scenario we've got, similar to the 2020 scenario. The dates seem to line up really nicely with, how we got to this first sort of major resistance after the election around these similar dates. I've been kind of viewing this 100K level like the 20K level that we had in 2020, which was the 2017 bull market high. And it looks awfully similar. Obviously, the context is like a little bit different now and stuff, but I was expecting a bounce on Bitcoin dominance here, and we got it, and it's not tasty, but I just feel like that if we're going to have this next leg up on Bitcoin, it's going to soak up some liquidity. And I don't know if it's going to be, a higher high or an equal high or whatever, but it just makes sense to me that if Bitcoin does remain somewhat within this range that it's been trading, it doesn't have like a severe pullback to like 70K or something like that, then I would think that people haven't taken profit on Bitcoin and they're looking to throw it down the ladder into ETH, alts, and things like that. Obviously, Bitcoin dominance will be telling of that if we do get a deeper correction. If we start getting the next leg up and Bitcoin dominance is nuking, then that confirms to me that, okay, people have actually taken profit out of Bitcoin. They're now speculating in the rest of the market. They're looking to make profit elsewhere. And, they've gotten the move that they wanted on Bitcoin. But it just doesn't make sense with all of the context that I'm about to give. So
Can I ask a question on your first chart before we dive into this one?
Yeah.
So for one, I find the similarities. I love this example that you posted, by the way. The seasonality is really important here. It's something that I focus a lot on. I've been a little hesitant to think that Bitcoin dominance would basically put in one final bull trap. I'm not opposed to it, right? But when I look at like what ETH BTC is doing and I look at what others dominance is doing, I find it hard to imagine a scenario where Bitcoin dominance puts in a new high and others dominance would effectively have to retrace the entire pump that it's just had. I don't know how you feel about that, but it seems to me it feels like others dominance already has its low in, but maybe not, right? I don't know. I don't know if you can't have both, right? You can't have Bitcoin dominance making a new high and others dominance not making a new low, unless it's just for a split second, I guess.
Or unless it's just East nuking.
Okay, easy does it, Jack. It's easy does it. That's for Tommy. Tommy Fudzy.
All right.
Yeah. I was looking at super trends on others dominance, and when it does like tend to pop up and start going green, there's kind of no stopping it on the weekly chart. So I do agree with that, and it just depends if we retrace like pretty badly here, and then this turns red again. But yeah, we'll see what happens with Bitcoin dominance. I don't think it's going to put a higher high in anymore, but it's tricky because like the whole of Bitcoin dominance right now is, absorbing all of the new VC tokens that they launched, all of the meme coins, everything, and it's still managed to get up to like 61%. And obviously now they've had their relief rally this from the lows, like XRP, XLM, all the huge like top 25, right? So that liquidity has like, been injected into those coins. Therefore, I don't expect Bitcoin dominance to put in a new high, but to come up for an equal high, potentially. It's just because like the context that I'm about to give for like what I think is going to go with what I think is going to happen with Bitcoin is it might help clear that up just a little bit.
All right, I'll let you cook then. Before more questions, let's see it.
Yeah, so it goes back to that, like where the first sort of big take profit zone comes in for Bitcoin. And I am comparing it to the last cycle because the stats are actually like very similar. And I think that we're actually outperforming last cycle due to the new, increased demand through the ETF. And
Donnie, not to cut you off, but this is something I wanted to discuss with you very deeply as well. Why I invited you for today. So later on that.
Yep. I'm about to go crazy on it, bro.
He's about to cook.
One more sip of Red Bull.
Just chug
You
it.
just
Donnie.
want
Stop
to
sipping
have
it.
more caffeine, Donnie. I know your game.
He's a Red Bull junkie, bro.
So from the bottom of after we had the 2017 high to the bottom of the bear market, I was measuring how much percentage Bitcoin has gained up until December the 1st, and it came up to test that 20K high, right, which was about 540% of a pump. It's the exact same that we have in the current cycle. If you test it to December the 2nd, we pretty much came up to 100K, which was about 540% as well. So from the bottom to that date after the election, we've come up a similar percentage. The only new thing that we've done this cycle is that we put in a new high before the halving, which has never been done before. And that's only thanks to the Bitcoin ETF. So when when this Bitcoin ETF rumor got announced, that's where I flipped like ultra bullish, thinking that okay, now we have Trump coming in to run for president. So I knew he was very favorable for the markets, and pair that with the ETF, it just made sense that if he were to win, it's just the ultimate setup for like a euphoric bull run to occur based off of all of the context that we have for the whole timeline of crypto. They've had a negative sentiment on crypto since inception, and from the last cycle, from the Black Swan event that we had here with COVID, this was also a very huge factor as to why I got super bullish when all of this stuff started coming out. So with COVID, it gives them when something like this happens to the market or the world, because this wasn't just like a market only sort of thing to happen. This affected the entire world, which by default affects the market. COVID happening here gives them a reason to be able to print a crazy amount of money. Obviously, they had to, adapt to whatever happened and all this kind of stuff. But this is what caused this exponential curve. It was kind of like, how do I explain this? The Federal Reserve, their entire thing is that they need to be able to protect their ability to print money. So if you look at the SPX from when the 2008 financial crisis happened, from this date on, this is where the 4-year sort of printing cycle solidified itself with QE. This is where like we had the cyclicality of okay, they print money on a cyclical basis, they tighten and loosen interest rates, all this kind of stuff. It happened right after the 2008 crisis. But the interesting thing about the 2008 crisis is that in 2009, the Bitcoin white paper was dropped. Now, people think it could be Satoshi Nakamoto or it could be, some institutions in the United States or wherever. It could be something that was, sort of like a back pocket play as to what they could be planning for the foreseeable future. So to me, it looks like in 2008, after this crisis, it's not a coincidence that something like Bitcoin would drop. Now, they have this system that's been created of being able to print money and all this kind of stuff, but it's a system that has no longevity. It's something that, is just going to lead to like more debt, worsening economic conditions, currency debasement, all this kind of stuff. So there has to be an exit strategy for that. And, now we've got Larry Fink, who just switched up recently, saying that it's a flight to quality and that if you're frightened of currency debasement and these kinds of things, you should look to Bitcoin. But this is the very system that, they sort of created. And in 2008, having the Bitcoin white paper drop and then these guys flipping up all of a sudden, to me, it just seems that it wasn't a coincidence. And now this COVID Black Swan, the reason why it's so important is because they had to print so much money to, accommodate for all of the damage that this thing has done. It led to us going into a crazy bear market right after, where, I think here at the top of this cycle, you had China banning crypto, but you also had an extreme tightening of interest rates, which is going to obviously negatively affect the market. None of this was sustainable. The interesting thing about this top as well is that if you look at money market funds over over its time horizon, the 3 times where it peaked the most and we hit into new higher highs, this is essentially where, large institutions and things like that, they keep their funds parked if, the economic conditions are in a state where you don't want to be in high risk assets. So in 2001, we had the dot-com collapse, and then in 2008 we had the financial collapse. So you can see that, sideline capital essentially went to the highest it's ever been. And then in these lull periods is where markets sort of had, a bull run or a more euphoric landscape. So 2008, you come back up, new higher high, 3.8 trillion. And right after that, you kind of had this, it wasn't a euphoric period, but you had a period where business started thriving again, markets were doing better, all this kind of stuff, all the way up until 2020 Q2, right when COVID happened. Now you can see this money market funds start increasing all the way up until Q2 of 2020. These funds that hold like this amount of capital, they usually are able to predict, what's about to happen, or if things are getting bad quickly, you'll see this thing start to rise. But the interesting thing about this is that when we did have COVID, we never got like a big pouring into the market. Why? Because the way in which they wanted to fix, what happened with COVID and stuff was just add 30% liquidity into the market, into the global liquidity index. So essentially just all of the fiat in the world, they added 30%. All of the countries added together, it equated to something like that. We never got this massive lull period after. It was like a small little decline, then back to higher highs. And since then, it's only been trending up because the way in which they tried to fix the COVID situation only made things worse. So this is just such a big, such an important place in why I got so bullish for this cycle. So because of the continued worsening of economic conditions and all this kind of stuff, they have to fix the problem that was caused in here. How are they going to fix it? They need to go through another printing cycle. And throughout this entire bear market, you had some of the worst sentiment, not only just in the crypto market, but globally. You literally had wars being funded. Everywhere you look, there was a spotlight being shined of where, literally kids are in war zones, things like this. No one is looking at markets. No one is looking at potentially something that could be pivotal for human history and financial markets. So it's very interesting that they came in to drop a, ETF for an asset that is potentially the solution to the problem that was caused all the way back in here. And not only just back here, but actually from the 2008 financial crisis, because that is when the turbo printing and the cyclicality of QE really started to solidify itself. This is where that 4-year cycle with, the elections, the business cycle, the printing cycle, the interest rate, how they do interest rates, how they increase them and decrease them, this kind of thing. They all tie back into this 2008 date. And it just so happens to be that in 2009, the Bitcoin white paper dropped. So was that intentional? I don't know. But, if they drop something here that could potentially fix the problem that they're going to create as a back pocket move, and now you're having the global financial elites tell you that if you're frightened of, currency debasement and this kind of thing, you should look to Bitcoin after they have fixed all of their books in the back end. That to me was okay, they're about to onboard the biggest institutions and everybody they can into this new asset that they have fixed their books for. And they've just had 300 days to accumulate.
Yeah, it's pretty astonishing because it's now how convenient is it that now that they're able to get positioned, now suddenly they're able to acknowledge Bitcoin for what it is, right?
Exactly. And this is literally the video that I wanted to show, just in case some of the viewers have never seen this video before, just to give a bit more context. Just listen to Larry.
I don't think we can hear that, unfortunately. Yeah, Donnie, we can't hear the video. We can see it though.
Oh, you can't hear it?
It's Jim Cramer, I can guess.
Okay. Well, he's basically just saying, I think it's a very good product if you're frightened. if countries are, you know, debasing their currency, which they are. He's just saying things like this. And but that's the system that, you know, if BlackRock and all these companies are the financial elites of the world, they definitely have, you know, connections with the Federal Reserve and all these kinds of people. They're in chats 100%. So when he's saying things like this, and it was planted right after this happened, right after the 2008 financial crisis, and now they've flipped after they've ran this system essentially to the ground. Now they've flipped, you know, positive for an asset like this. It's just obvious what was done throughout this whole, you know, sort of last 5-year period. So now it comes to this point. This is where they finally let this thing go. Now they could have, you know, if they really wanted to embrace Bitcoin from last cycle, that this predatory like macro top would have never happened how it did. And you know, especially the second sort of pump that we had here was literally FTX just using stolen funds to pump altcoins, repump the market for one more like complacency shoulder before they nuked and flipped the sentiment. This low point in the market where, you know, FTX had their collapse and everything, that was where like, okay, crypto is finished. But only a few months after, you start hearing the rumor of the ETF come into play, and you have this pro crypto candidate who, you know, at the time we didn't know would be pro crypto, but we knew he would be pro markets, is running for president again. So they keep leveraging this like fear and positivity. So the fear here was that if Kamala wins, they're not pro crypto. The SEC has been, you know, throughout this entire range, they've been on every single like crypto companies, but with, you know, trying to crack down on them, stop them from innovating, all this kind of stuff. And then you had, you know, a potential catalyst of Trump winning, and he's pro crypto, he's against war. It's the perfect market euphoric landscape that he provides to let this thing finally, well, not let this thing, but for the world to flourish, essentially. And if the world's flourishing, the markets are going to do, you know, just that. So, yeah, once Trump won the election, you got the reaction on the chart right away. And I'm sure that BlackRock or, you know, these ETF issuers, they would have known that that is the best outcome for the asset class that they've been accumulating for the last 300 days. And I don't think that, you know, they're going to let this asset go back down below where they've been accumulating for the last 300 days. Also, this 49K wick that we had, this was also the third biggest volatility spike we've seen on the VIX since COVID and since the 2008 financial crisis. So that's why I'm looking at these two things very similarly, these two cycles in terms of how they're playing out. In here, you had a reaccumulation after pumping from the bear market low to 14K, which is actually a massive pump. You had this reaccumulation period with, you know, the black swan event or whatever, which had the massive volatility spike, very similarly to how you had this 49K wick low with the volatility spike when, you know, Japan's yen carry trade was going to shit, essentially. So it's very similar. You have this reaccumulation range, and then the target, well, the first take profit zone for Bitcoin that we covered earlier, that happened last cycle from this reaccumulation range was the 3.618 FIP. That's where the first like sort of take profit zone happened for Bitcoin. You had your first 30% correction, a high time frame correction, where then the profits that were generated from Bitcoin, they started speculating on Ethereum and the rest of the market. And that next leg up is where you had like your alt season. The macro range target from this was the 20K high to the bear market low. So this entire range. And that was also the 3.618 target that ended up, you know, getting hit and topping like just around that sort of level. So the fact that we're keeping up in percentage, even though we're at much higher numbers, like 100K to, you know, from this bear market low to where we came up on December 1st, and we put in a new high before the halving, and now we have the biggest institutions in the world and countries wanting to, you know, not wanting to, but being onboarded into the market and now, wanting to allocate X percentage of whatever they can into this asset class, I think that the demand is just, it's so much greater than it's ever been. And so for that reason alone, these targets should at least get hit from what we saw last cycle. So if we're looking at the same range here, 74K to the 49K low, the 3.618 is around 138K. So if we start pumping seasonally, how we're looking at it here, maybe in a week or so, couple of weeks, if this is the first area that gets the first high time frame correction, for me, it's pretty much confirmed that this 200K level is going to get tapped this cycle. Whether it happens like right after, like how it did here with a follow-up wave, and then you've got like alts and stuff taking over and we form a top there, I'm not sure. But yeah, based off the demand that's coming into the market, like this 138K, I think is like a base case. If we manage to hold this current range that we're in. If we go much lower, then we'll have to see how Bitcoin dominance reacts on that next wave up. But yeah, that's kind of how I'm viewing Bitcoin and how we can move forward from this zone. Would also leave
No.
like, yeah, go ahead.
No, I didn't want to cut you off. It's just that the audience probably was so hooked up on your cook session that they forgot to press the like button. And we are not even half on the like button. Like the man set an alarm clock and had to wake up in 3 or 4 a.m. his time, cracked up a Red Bull just to make a cook session. And you guys cannot even appreciate it. Shame on you! Spanking you deserve.
Let me check the like button. Y'all better be FOMO.
Maybe we should. Bruv, it
You're not
was
gonna like it.
300 likes with 800 people watching. Like, that's bad.
It's bad.
God damn.
Maybe
Bad.
Donnie
And
wants to
we got another what 2,000 or 3,000 on Twitter. It's like,
Yeah.
I need them to panic like, man. I need them to panic like.
I feel
They-
defeated. I feel like I have no energy in the tank to even have this discussion about the like button today. I'm just exhausted. It's like every day we cook, every day we bring the alpha, and for some reason the like button's not working. And I'm like, maybe there's a YouTube glitch and like you're hitting the like button and it's not registering. And then I reach out to YouTube support and they're like, Max, we assure you that that's not the case. Like your audience just isn't liking your content. And I'm like, there's no way that they would do that to us. That's impossible. Check your code. And they're like, check the code. It works. So I'm just like, like, what do I even say at this point? Like, what should we not cook? Because if we're cooking and they don't like it, maybe if we stop cooking, they'll like it. I don't know. I don't know what you think, Jackus, but like, I'm tired, like I'm tired, boss. I'm tired, grandpa.
I feel you, Max. I felt the same way tired yesterday. It's just what it is. Like, actually yesterday was not as bad. Yesterday was pretty solid. But I felt like that the past week, and I was like, why do we even cook here, man? Like, the people are not even appreciating it. Like, maybe they just don't want to see it. Maybe they just don't want to see
always
and
down
hear.
on Crypto Maxi though, Jackus.
That's true. Some legends
Crypto
walk
Maxi.
among us and they don't wear the cape.
And guys, I'm not done yet. Okay, I'm not done yet. All right. Yeah, maybe the likes are looking better, but you still haven't followed Donnie on X yet. And I take that personally. Similarly to how I take linear fibs personally. Here's the thing. I'm okay with linear fibs as long as you're targeting the 3.618. But if you target a 1.618 in linear mode, nah. I can't get behind that. If you're enjoying the cook session, hit the like button on YouTube, hit the like button on Twitter, hit the retweet button on Twitter, and then navigate over to Donnie's profile and hit the follow button. You must do that immediately. There's an extra stipulation today. you must express your support with not only liking the stream and sharing the stream and commenting on the stream, but also following our guest, Donnie Dicey. If you're watching on YouTube, his X account is the first one in the description below. You can see it. Okay. So Donnie, you were thinking that this is a brief pause before we ultimately go higher, and you're targeting the 3.618 based on the recent 8-month reaccumulation that Bitcoin had. Okay, so that would be 138, 140K, something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to do this at all, but maybe we could zoom in a little bit because we're seeing a little bit of blood today. I can share my thoughts on, probably what happens next. We have some economic data later this week. We've got CPI, unemployment, and then we also have FOMC coming up next week. So there's some things that we have to look out for in the interim. And I personally don't think that like a de-risking locally into some of this economic data and an FOMC is the worst thing in the world. I actually think it kind of sets up a nice opportunity to long for much, much higher, assuming that we get pretty good economic data and a bullish FOMC. But what are you thinking happens locally here? Because Bitcoin's selling off, nothing too crazy, but it is selling off. Altcoins, getting hit a little bit, not a surprise. Where do you think this local chop resolves?
We actually saw something quite similar to this when we had the ETF launch. Kind of had this like by the rumor sort of uptrend with, all of this liquidity being left behind, and you had that tap of 49K, and then you kind of cleaned up all of this sort of range that you had before shooting up higher. So that's kind of what I'm thinking might happen right now. Like I thought we would put in just like a higher low around here, but I also wouldn't be surprised if you kind of just clean this whole area up and then start, building another
Because we got
uptrend
a
from
nice
here.
Darth Maul wick right down there, I see. So
This one?
yeah. So it's like we
Yeah.
have the low and then the high. So it's like it wouldn't surprise me to run that and then run the other side later.
Yeah, so just sort of this whole thing, it could even go like back down to 86, 85. I just don't think that it would, but you never know. But I'm thinking that we clean this up, kind of V-recover right out of here, and then maybe just a quick reaccumulation before going higher. Obviously, there are POI zones that are lower. You have this area right here, which is like a strong demand zone, but that would just be a massive correction from here. I would not expect a 28% pullback from where we are right now, just given like the seasonality that we have of pumping into January. I really think that Trump's inauguration is going to act sort of like a sell the news event. The reason for that is that I saw a couple of interviews of some people who manage, big funds and sort of companies like that. They're saying that the massive institutions, the ones that are worth like multi-billions of dollars, upwards of like 10, 20, 30, 50 billion, they have a much longer process of allocating to Bitcoin. They need to put forth a white paper, which is essentially just them like highlighting where the money's going, why they're allocating to this thing, blah, blah, blah. That goes to like a boardroom, and then they have to, sign it, talk about it, all this kind of stuff. It's a very long process. So the smaller institutions, they're able to just front run. There's a much shorter like process for, companies that don't have to go through all of that. They're smaller companies, maybe in the tens of millions, hundreds of millions. There's much more of them. They're able to allocate right as soon as they got the green light from Trump. So this is why we had this crazy expansion right after he won. People were like, oh, wow, we've got this, pro-market essentially candidate, and, he's going to fix the US economy. He's going to end the wars, all this kind of stuff. He had this mega reaction. So yeah, these bigger institutions, I think they're going to be able to start allocating around Q1. So it's giving me a vibe that like going into Trump's inauguration, we could see upside, probably quite large upside, but it might act as a sell the news event, and these bigger institutions get to scoop up that dip. whether it's, we run to 138K and come and deviate this 100K level, if we leave like a crazy demand zone here, I'm not sure. But I feel like it's gonna behave that way, just because of the context of these institutions not actually being allocated yet. So with like meme coins and things like this, people do OTC deals and get the numbers that they want all the time. So you can imagine these massive multi-billion-dollar funds being able to talk to exchanges and be like, hey, I want, an average buy of 110K, 100K, whatever. So yeah, that's why I think a correction is definitely imminent if we go like higher than this zone. Whether it happens now or not, I'm not sure, but yeah, that's kind of how I'm thinking for that.
Okay. Yeah, that's not too bad. I mean, look, to me, it's pretty clear what we're setting up for, right? And we know that typically, like December through basically December through April or May, it's typically really solid for altcoins following a Bitcoin halving. And I understand, a little local correction like this can stir up a lot of emotions in people, but I don't view this as anything unhealthy at all. And the title of today's stream is actually, is this the final shakeout before higher? I would argue that there's a pretty damn good chance that this is one of those final opportunities to really get positioned in ETH and ETH beta specifically before Bitcoin ultimately trends up deep, into the 100K plus region. I mean, we got above 100K, but like didn't really get like strong weekly closes with a lot of buying above there. So it's like I view this as, not that I need it because I'm already positioned, but I'm like, I do view this personally as like one of your final shakeouts before we really start ripping. And maybe it starts January 1st, or maybe it starts, middle of December. We just have like another week, right? We got to get through FOMC or something like that. But I really am excited about what comes next, and I understand it's scary for a lot of people, but I think it's perfectly healthy. I do.
Yeah,
Donnie,
yeah.
I'll let you react, but I wanted to follow up on your take that you had on your cook session after.
Sure. Yeah, I was gonna continue with that. But I just wanted to show this chart as well, which was, I drew this actually on October 21st, back when Bitcoin was around like 67K, just saying how, if Trump were to win the election, we're probably going to have a speed run to where this Pi cycle top 350 MA was located, which was somewhere around like 115, 118K, but it obviously keeps curling up as the price keeps going higher. And the first phase of it is kind of done. But zooming in on this chart now, how far we've come up to 100K, it's literally like a sniper target going straight through this 3.618 in this zone. So I truly don't think this is going to be a big correction. I wouldn't even be surprised if it just stops like right where it is right now, a higher low. And by next week, like middle of next week latest, you're going to start seeing an uptrend get built and, potentially head above this 350 MA, which, that would be like 139, 138K if you look at this chart. And then you have that deviation below it. It's probably going to be a bit deeper. Who knows? But yeah, I don't think this is anything to worry about. In fact, if you have stables and things like that you want to deploy, now is a good chance to scale in because, Bitcoin dominance going higher, altcoins and stuff are going to bleed like crazy. A lot of them were at like 90 RSI and all that kind of stuff. So a pullback for them is like healthy, to be honest. Nothing to be worried about.
All right. Donnie, so you asked me actually about the question, you wanted to know my take about the diminishing returns and so forth and what it means for BTC.
Yeah.
And so let me clarify that, or like let me put my explanation on it, and also also on what you had in mind. I'll probably share the screen here. I'm just cleaning it up because, as you know me, I have too many paintings on all of the possible charts, and I do make folders, but I have like 20 folders on each chart, man. It's crazy.
Jeez.
Anyways, wait. All right, here it is. So because I'm thinking I might need a chart here sometimes. So my take on the diminishing returns is that it is obviously very real, because like as some asset grows, it's way harder for it to pump percentage wise. It will still like make insane gains, right? Like if you think about it, if we add 100K from now, it's 200K, and that's just bigger than all of its history. But percentage wise, it's just 100%. But the amounts of capital that you need for it to move the asset is huge. And so from this point of view, the diminishing returns for a cycle do make sense, right? I'm very much on board with it for the people. Just like, it's just super hard for gold nowadays to make like insane moves, and it still does, but obviously, this type of move, which is 600%, but for BTC this would be like as of right now, this would probably be like 6,000%. It's simply due to the market cap, which doesn't mean that there aren't times when an asset can produce outsized returns. And so that leads me back to BTC, and where are we, right? So is it like that, are we truly expecting diminishing returns for this cycle? And while what one could say that, right? Because if we were to look at the sample size, then yeah, we had 60,000%, then we had 12,000%, that we had 2,000%. So now we could be like, all right, so it's like 1,000%, maybe even less, so maybe the top is in, like, that makes sense, right? We have 3 sample sizes, and I would tend to agree on the diminishing cycle point of view, diminishing cycle returns point of view. The difference, in my opinion, this cycle, and this can happen in any asset, is when you have a specific conditions that line up for that current one, which can send the asset higher than the previous cycle, not previous cycles, right? Like we are not going to exceed, we are not going to do 12,000% very likely in this cycle. Like that's not what's going to happen, most likely. But there is a good chance that we do outperform the prior one due to the reasons of everything that's lining up for this one. And we did see that in gold or in commodities in general, when in, for example, the year 71, when they simply got out of the gold standard and they suddenly were able to be traded as a commodity on an open market, and you saw a super cycle back then that outperformed the prior cycles before. I think we can see the same. Obviously, it's a question and it's not a guarantee, but I think there's a good chance we do see that, because this cycle, like, or better put, the prior one was simply a printing one, right? That was just a cycle where there was loads of inflation coming in and every asset appreciated. And obviously, with lower market cap and more gambling mentality in a way, BTC appreciated much better than like SPX or so. Again, due to its market capitalization and so forth. I do believe, however, this cycle, we will be crossed with not just the printing cycle, which hasn't really even begun yet, although we are starting to see M2 money supply to crawl up. But I think this cycle is met with something the past one didn't, and that's demand. That demand is coming in not just from, not just from Sailor, but from all of TradFi. And it's going to come, if not now, then later, from lots of major companies who are going to put it on their balance sheet. And it doesn't matter that, whether Microsoft put it in now or later on. They will do it at some point. The only question is when. And then more will add up, and that is simply going to create a bigger adoption. And I think many of you probably seen the S-curve adoption, right? So it goes something like this. And it goes very quickly in the first stages and then goes kind of slower at this is, you can think of 10 years, but could be anything really, could put 15, 20, doesn't matter. So it goes very quickly at first, then slows down. This is like the early adopters phase, right? This is, in my opinion, this phase was all the way up until here. Everything you saw here was the early adopters phase.
Yeah, I agree.
That's this one. And I think that right now we are moving from the early, I think we reached the point when you cross this phase. This is when the asset no longer becomes a bubble, no longer becomes an experiment, because there is lots of those who fail in this phase. They just, there are technologies who went on and then died. Not every makes it. But BTC is here nowadays to stay. And it's going to go from, and by the way, this and this is like 10% of the population using it. This is 90% of the population using it, right? Like even my grandma is using nowadays a smartphone. So she is like in this category nowadays. This is where you see the last portion. But right now with BTC, we are somewhere around here. And approximately, like I do not have the right numbers, but we could say that's 20% of the world has BTC right now. Maybe it's slightly more, slightly less, doesn't matter. It's definitely not 50 and most definitely not 90%. So as we hit this specific condition of time when we are in this phase, I think there is a good chance that this cycle will not only, it has a good chance for it to last longer than most people anticipate. Most people are stuck in a 4-year cycle theory. I think this one can last for a little longer, and then the bear market can last a little longer possible. And people need to be counting with it, not just be like, yeah, every 4 year I just buy and sell. No, it's not going to work like that forever. So I think that when the demand right now is moving in this direction, and we will also have obviously inflation coming in as well. When these two meet, I think it puts a good case for the cycle to be outperforming the previous one, and it will likely not happen in a long time again after. But for this one, the door is open, and I think we are seeing that on one of my favorite chart that I've been showing for a while. Wait, is the other way around, right? And that's the BTC versus M1 money supply. And as you can see, I think this chart very well demonstrates that doesn't show in logarithmic for some reason. You can see that each cycle was an adoption cycle. You see each outperforming the prior one, except the past one. The past one was just a printing cycle, and we basically spent the whole time in a range when compared against M1 money supply. That means all the currency, that's sitting in your wallets, in your bank accounts, and so forth. So you can look up the calculations on its own. Whereas this cycle, and I find it funny how well the levels are working, right? Like people could say like, yeah, this chart doesn't mean anything. Well, if it doesn't mean anything, why is it so precise, right? Why do these levels work so well? Like this is the old 6K support from 2018, and yet it provided the resistance on this way up. It's not luck. Look at this reaction at the all-time highs, right? Obviously it's 100K level, but it's a confluence for all of these things. So I think this cycle is quite visibly heading for that price discovery and adoption. And this gives me a certain good probability. Again, it's no guarantee, but I think very good probability that this cycle you might see a similar type of cycle as in 2017. And I do not think it's fair to compare it to 2021, which was truly just a printing. Then China bans BTC, the miners move away, you get a final upside. By the way, Donnie, I do not agree that this was just by FTX, this move. I think you can look it up pretty much any other macro asset, and you are going to see a second like that happened for both of these macro assets. They like had the first pump and they had the second one, and I think it would happen regardless of FTX was or not. But it's true that FTX was buying this.
Now they were buying altcoins, like giving them blow ups.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
But I would say that.
And don't forget about 3AC also.
Yeah.
Well, you have to
sure.
have to remember a lot of these a lot of the positioning that funds had in the last cycle were levered to the point where, like 3AC, for example, staked ETH, great example. They used that as collateral to be able to play altcoins. So effectively, they had positions in majors that were so large they wouldn't be able to exit. They were trying to exit through the altcoin pumps that they were also creating, and it worked until things like staked ETH came off peg and 3AC was no longer solvent. FTX wasn't solvent. I actually think FTX was insolvent after the maybe even before the May crash in 2021. But they survived for a full another year after that.
Crazy. Anyways, so yeah, I just to finish up, and then you can give me my thoughts. But I think that this cycle has definitely a good probability for those outperforming returns. Obviously, we can discuss like what is a bull market, because some people, like to me, bull market can mean even if we spend another 8 months here ranging and then continuing higher, right? But I suppose it comes to the definition, whether like this was a bull market, this was a bear market, and now it's a bull market again. To me, this is all a bull market. So in this regard, I say that we can easily, enter a new paradigm, and we can be doing this, whatever shape it takes. We can be doing this for a while. Not saying it's exactly like this, right? I'm just giving an example, but I could see a bull market that could, not saying it will. I will have to see and evaluate each level in the future, but I could see this happening. So that's kind of
the chart you gave of comparing Bitcoin with the money supply. That one was a really good chart to give confluence to the money market funds chart that I showed earlier, of how last cycle money market funds barely dipped because everybody realized that the economic conditions are still extremely bad. So they weren't, the risk appetite for money market funds was still very low. They were still holding treasury bills and all that kind of stuff. The problem with money market funds now, and to why I said Bitcoin is being essentially marketed as the solution to what's going on with this whole printing cycle stuff, is that the rate of debasement now is higher than what the treasury bills and all that kind of stuff yields. So if there's 6.5 trillion in money market funds, essentially sidelined capital, they don't want to be holding or losing opportunity cost in treasury bills that are yielding 4%, 5% when currency is being debased at 10%. That's why I believe the S&P as well this cycle is not even close to a top. Like, these people are wanting to allocate now that we have this crazy macro and everything with Trump lined up for markets to continue going higher. So 6.5 trillion sideline capital, that's a lot. And obviously that's not going to go to zero, but from 2008, from the 2008 peak to where money market funds bottom, there was like 1.5 trillion that was injected just from that. Plus now you've got the permabid from the largest institutions and countries coming into Bitcoin. especially if Trump puts Bitcoin underneath the treasury. And recently, when we hit 100K, he actually posted on his own like social media platform, "Congratulations, Bitcoiners, 100,000. You're welcome. Together, we will make America great again." That to me, that signals that they're 100% going to put Bitcoin underneath the treasury. Whether it's like, as soon as he goes into office or many months after that or years after, it doesn't matter. That permabit
Yeah.
is coming.
I actually think that the longer it happens, the better, because usually it goes like this, where like it's the price is ran by the narrative. Then when the narrative actually happens, right? So I can imagine like, hey, we're gonna put BTC onto our balance sheet, and then everyone's just like, oh my god, US putting Bitcoin on its balance sheet, and everyone will start buying, 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 and it's going to happen. And we could say, a year from now. And then when it actually happens, and they're like, all right, from this moment forward, we are putting it on our balance sheet, I could see that being the top. People will be like, like I see that each cycle, people will be like, oh my god, they are putting Bitcoin on its balance sheet, I'm going all in. Plus the sentiment is going to be crazy. And then there's the bear market, but they actually do put it on its balance sheet, and when they are loaded up, another cycle sort of begins. Could see that
Yeah.
That's
happening.
what happened with
not to
the
ma-
ETFs in the last cycle.
True. That's true. That's a good point.
It depends when they announce it. So I do
Yeah.
have a little bit of a theory of like, if we do have this April, May-ish sort of local top, if they don't announce the Bitcoin going underneath the treasury up until that point, and we do get, a correction, another reaccumulation in like June, July, that actually could be the catalyst for, repumping the market for late 25, early Q1 2026, if they do put Bitcoin underneath the treasury during that period. And it does remind me of 2017. If you go on the Bitcoin chart, Jackus, in 2017, I think around June of 2017, there was like a local top there. If you remember, you're going to have
Yeah.
to zoom right in. This is where actually altcoins had peaked for that part. Yeah, right there. Yeah. Altcoins had a crazy run up to this point, and people were thinking that this is the top for the cycle, but you saw this crazy rotation from all of the liquidity that was extracted out of alts back into Bitcoin to have this crazy, parabolic curve right after that. And then you had it redistributed back into alts for the final blow off top in 2017. So I'm thinking that the psychology for this cycle could be to rotate back into Bitcoin, because I know for sure that I would, if I was making profit off meme coins, altcoins, all this kind of stuff, and I was able to predict a correction or whatever, maybe I had insider info, I would full port Bitcoin on that dip. If it came back to 100K and I had like 5 to 10 mil, boom, 50 to 100 BTC right there. So we do know that in prior cycles, altcoins, of course, they were marketed as like the future and the utility and all this, but they were used to outpace Bitcoin to buy more BTC. And I feel like that is the case and the narrative that we have now with meme coins this cycle, the meme coin super cycle. So I really do think if we do get this local top in May or whenever it comes, you do not want to be holding on that dip, because it's gonna, that's gonna be something else if it plays out like that. If they haven't announced Bitcoin underneath the treasury and we get the topping formation, I'm pretty confident that after that they're going to use that as a catalyst to repump the market. But if we're in the topping range and then they announce it, just like you said, Jackus, it's probably a top.
Yeah, obviously, I absolutely agree that it depends on the timing when it happens, right? Which is something that people are asking me, like, "Hey, is the inauguration of Trump bullish or bearish?" And I'm like, "It depends, right? Are we like straight up pumping into it? Well, probably that's going to be used as a bearish catalyst. But are we on a dip at the time? Well, probably bullish one. So it really depends on like what the price is doing at that time, and I agree with it. If the US were to start buying right now, it would be bullish, but I think it's going to take some time before it actually happens. So yeah, yeah.
I'm kind of using legacy markets as my barometer for when I think the crypto top will be in, right? From a timing standpoint. I think it makes sense to be incredibly bullish at least until the S&P hits 7,000, and I will go on record. I think that will happen next year. Realistically, the froth will probably occur above that level. So we will see where Bitcoin is trading when that happens. But I tend to think the S&P's topping range will probably be above like 7K. Whenever that happens, we'll see where the market is. But right now, that's kind of my expectation for 2025, loosely, expecting. But I think you can kind of look at the way that volatility is being priced next year, and you can expect a market that's going to trade a lot more volatilely. Like the volatility skew right now is pricing the VIX headed into effectively 12 or 13 at the end of the year. Into the middle of next year, the VIX skew rises into 17 or 18. So we're going to see a lot more vol in the markets. And I think at least initially, like that is going to manifest itself in market up, volatility up in the same way that we saw in the tech bubble.
Yeah. And I do think these bear markets from this point, at least this next coming bear market, is not going to be as brutal as the ones we saw before, especially if they put Bitcoin underneath the treasury, just because, the entities that are buying, their more diamond hand systematic buying approach. Like Cynthia Loomis announced that, they want to do X amount of BTC per day, the United States. So if that number is 400 Bitcoin a day, that's 400 Bitcoin a day. So if price goes up, they're still buying 400 Bitcoin, which will cost more money. So having that approach and that diamond-handed approach, it's just going to keep price up so much more, just like the S&P with, pension funds and stuff like that.
Pretty much.
I think the diminishing drawdowns to me are interesting because I am definitely in the camp that diminishing returns for this cycle are a meme. And I think as a proxy or a byproduct of that, I have to therefore think that diminishing drawdowns are also a meme. I just think there's going to be a lot of reflexivity baked into this cycle because, yes, we do have a lot more diamond-handed participants, more legacy entrants who probably aren't going to sell their bags very easily, at least not like a normal crypto participant. But we're also going to see, I think, a lot more leverage than has ever been built into a Bitcoin bull market before in history. So there will be a lot of reflexivity. And I will continue to speculate. I think MicroStrategy will eventually go to zero. And we will see what that does to the Bitcoin price.
You think so?
I do, yeah. Or like TradFi's version of zero. It won't look like Luna, but I think eventually you're going to reach a pinch point with MicroStrategy where they won't be able to control the market volatility in a way where they can mute downside volatility, and eventually it will put a significant amount of their bond investors underwater, maybe even eventually MicroStrategy, which the yield they offer on their bonds is why they can continue the Ponzi and continue to issue more shares to buy more Bitcoin. So I think eventually you're going to hit an inflection point. I don't think you're there yet. But it is something I think to keep in mind because we'll be having discussions, I'm sure, in like 6 to 8 months about how the Ponzi is literally indestructible. I feel like that rhetoric is already kind of spawning up a little bit because it's a very difficult mechanism to understand. But at the end of the day, there will be downside volatility in markets once again. It might take markets seeing volatility rise on an upside move first before it happens. But, it's crypto. So it will be inevitable again at some point.
Yeah. Interesting. That'll be a crazy bearish catalyst if they do go under.
Well, think about it, though. It's like you were saying, Donnie, if you have a ton of companies who end up also buying Bitcoin, or even like taking the same strategy that MicroStrategy's done, that reflexivity, yes, it will have very big consequences to the downside, but it could also create a parabola on Bitcoin and crypto that we, couldn't have possibly predicted as well.
Yeah. What goes up must come down.
This is
Yeah.
something that we agreed kind of upon, Tommy, with the MicroStrategy fucking it up. I do not think they are in a bad position just yet, but I think that they will get to it as they keep buying on the way up, right? Like as they are forced to do so. So I'm like, we kind of agreed. We kind of discussed this for a while that we all came to the same conclusion. That it's a inevitability.
If
Yeah.
if the
We'll enjoy the bull market until that happens.
Exactly. Yeah, but exactly, like there are people who will say like, yeah, like they are going to dust, they are going to fucking fail. But the thing is, yes, but the Ponzi can go on for a while, and that's what lots of people forget. And I always think of the dot-com bubble, where so many sophisticated, good hedge fund managers liquidated their fund simply because they were short too early. It's just not easy to fight the degeneracy and bull market. Like there is a reason why bull market is called bull market, because when the bulls with their horns start running, it's just like you cannot stand in their way, right? It takes time for the herd to stop. So
What is
Yeah.
that George Soros quote about not getting in front of the herd, running with it, because you can get trampled by the stampede? I mean,
is it?
people like to be in the minority, the 1%, because they feel like that automatically gives them some asymmetric edge, but only at inflection points. And if you're going against the crowd, you're probably going to have a harder time identifying that inflection point than if you are participating in it. I think I feel like I've always had the most success identifying tops and bottoms when I wasn't looking for one.
That's true. I would say one thing more, Donnie, to the larger percentage cycle theory for this one that we kind of discussed, is that in the past cycle, literally everyone was looking for like at least 100K at minimum, if not 200K. That this top took so many by surprise. This cycle, it's vice versa. This cycle, everyone's looking to escape. So far, everyone's like, the top is here. No, it's here. No, it's going to be here. They will keep moving the goalpost, and they have so far. Like, bruv, when 40K?
Yeah. I agree with that. You've got the opposite, and like that black swan right there, man. Like I guarantee you, if that never happened, no one would be predicting a black swan for this cycle, bro.
You mean the COVID one?
Yeah, bro.
Yeah.
Now the COVID. It's just there's a black swan every month, apparently. What do you think of ETH, Jackus, for this cycle? If Bitcoin's gonna go to some crazy numbers?
I have a theory where ETH will start closing on Bitcoin market cap in the next years.
If that happens, that's gonna be a massive top signal for me.
I think in the next few, I think in like probably 3 months, I think I'll have all the answer I need. Right now, it's just an anticipation, and confirmation comes, in my opinion, in 3 months. I think we will see ETH-BTC pumping right now, but to what extent is a question. And then obviously it's not going to happen in 3 months, but in 3 months I could get the answer if it will happen in the future. Kind of discussed this actually yesterday in BB.
Yeah, ETH's going to be a beast this cycle. The sentiment that was kept on it was just so telling of how hard it's going to pump.
I swear, Donnie, people like, let me go here.
I think as you see TradFi start to up the leverage a little bit more, you're going to see ETH pick up. Not just because people are buying explicitly ETH with extra liquidity, but you're probably going to see, I mean, it's kind of funny to say now, but you're probably going to see more and more sophisticated entities, TradFi entities, moving money on chain. maybe not for like meme coin opportunities, but for yield, obviously. Maybe we see DeFi make a comeback specifically under that premise. But yeah, no, I do think that to me has always been the biggest, upside case for ETH is TradFi moving like major amounts of money onto ETH.
Yeah, they are building on ETH, like in hidden, like we know it, but the public doesn't know. They think that Larry is the biggest BTC bull, while secretly he's depositing hundreds of millions onto ETH. That's literally what's happening on chain. So people are just underestimating this range and what it means for the future. I just find it ludicrous that people think that we are like topping here.
Yeah, 6K top, man.
Bitcoin double tops.
Imagine.
Just to play devil's advocate, I'm not saying ETH's going to top here, but we did see Bitcoin do it last cycle.
It's like people, after all this bottom accumulation, they would be like, and they were like this, by the way, they were, we're going to pump and this is the top. This is what people think right now. And that accumulation is longer than this one. People are like, we're going to pump and that's it. Like this is the pump, right? They're totally ignoring this. They're like, we're going to pump and then bear market. Pump. And then this bear market, we gotta, retest this or something.
No, bro. No. I think my highest sort of target, without just being like, okay, this thing is just never going to come down for Bitcoin, is like around 450K for like early 26. And if that happens, man, I can't imagine what ETH would go to. It would be ridiculous. But yeah, we'll see how it plays out. I think 10K ETH is like extremely easy for what's coming for Bitcoin, and by default ETH, like it's so much lower market cap. Man, these people, they love to make profit. So the Ethereum ETF is just very telling. You hit 4K without an ETH ETF. So I think yeah.
I think somehow, like, crypto used to do all these crazy returns, right? Like if you think about it, ETH made 6,000% in the prior cycle. This cycle, but this cycle, people are like, do you really think that ETH can go to $6,000? Like, can it really make 600%? Is that possible? Do you think so? I'm like, what?
I think the thing that people fail to realize is that, the financial elites, these people who have crazy money, it's just like when you're buying a meme coin. If it's 1 mil market cap, you can buy 1% for 10K, right? So the fact that ETH has done all these gains and all this stuff and it's 3K, oh, it's so expensive. It might be expensive to retail, but to them it's cheap. They can buy a lot of supply for not that much money. So you have to look at it from their perspective. It's the same with Bitcoin at 100K. Like they've managed to buy, the ETF issuers over 1 million Bitcoin in like the span of 8 months. That's insane. Like that's a 20th of the supply. So to them, this is cheap. That's why I believe that like from this point on, now that they're, allocating so heavily and filling their positions, this thing's just going to go so much higher. None of this prior price history even matters. To us, it matters. Like, oh my God, it did 1,000,000%. To them, it's just like, okay, sweet. I can buy 1%, 2%, whatever. Over a, whatever, how many years period they need. It's the same with Cynthia Loomis when she was talking about like the Bitcoin reserve. She's like, okay, by this date, if we buy this much per day, we're going to have this much supply. Like that's how they look at it. They're going to buy X amount of supply, and for them, they can afford it.
Yeah, I really think you are getting the long game, because I think lots of people are currently not, and I think in time, obviously, like the thing is, right, that nobody will remember it in time, and people will just change their topics. But right now, it's like it's sort of like nobody nowadays cares for that so many people who were calling for 40K or what people were saying down. Like that's
No.
history. It's too old, just a year ago, but it's like prehistoric times. Nobody cares now. And the thing is that lots of people are so vocal right now about, like, again, can ETH really go to 6K? Do you like think that's possible? I'm like, study crypto bull markets, you know? And as you said, it comes to the liquidity, and what for retail is, buying coins sub 100 million market cap. That's how the big guys view Ether or BTC right now.
Yeah, literally. Exactly the same.
Anyways, that was a good discussion, but I think it's time to take us out, Tommy. So what do you say?
Yes, let me steal the screen from you here, Jackus.
Go for it.
All right. Hold on. I don't pull a Tommy very often.
Tommy wanted to pull a Tommy, but didn't have Tommy ready.
All right, guys. We have come into the end of the show, but we do have a few more bits of alpha to offer you. Oh, we got some super chats. Oh, wow. Somebody gifted 5 because Bitcoin memberships. Let's go, man. You guys rock. They want your thoughts on XRP, Donnie.
Ripple for this cycle.
Yeah.
Well, Ripple's actually interesting because, what's happening now with the crypto market is that they're setting up essentially the entire world to be onboarded into this new digital era. So, we've got the power of AI coming into play. They're never going to stop, developing that. That's why also the system won't implode, because they can just print money and keep it going. When they're close to technological breakthroughs, they're not going to stop. Why would they go through a 10-year Great Depression when they're about to go to Mars, for example? So what that has to do with XRP is essentially trying to create the payment rail system for, this blockchain future, dealing with banks. Let's say the banking infrastructure is building on ETH and all this kind of stuff. XRP will facilitate all of the, microtransactions and all this kind of stuff. So their place in the future digital era is actually massive. That's why when Trump won the election, you had a god candle on XRP, because the SEC now doesn't have a chokehold on crypto, because Trump was going to ban Gary Gensler and this sort of thing. So XRP, great long-term investment. It's going to go up over time. They have a super big, important role for the future of this space. And yeah, they're going to do well over time. So obviously, buy on a pullback. And yeah, XRP is a good coin, man.
And I love it.
You will likely get lots of hate for this, as is very usual. Until the same people who say those hate comments buy the top a few months later.
Wouldn't it be fitting, because we're so used to seeing XRP pumps like top crypto cycles, for us to just see some massive XRP blow off at some point next year, maybe in 2026, where it's like, well, this is a very long-term top for crypto. And in hindsight, XRP literally going to what, maybe like a trillion or $1.5 trillion in market cap was a very fitting way to end the cycle. But
that would be hilarious.
With them buying it.
Yeah. Buying the generational top of XRP. Thanks for playing. You bought Jackus and Donnie's bags, and Louis.
I don't even hold XRP, bro. But I can appreciate and respect the pump. And, they're the first movers of, their kind. So I think they'll stay number one.
Well, it's like we say, it's never bearish for your bags that other altcoins are pumping. It just means that the wealth effect is enriching the ecosystem. And inevitably, it will probably come back into your bags, unless you literally just pick the worst coin on Solana or something like that. Then you might have to worry a little bit about that. But that's it from us, guys, though. We hope that you enjoyed the show. A few very quick things before we officially wrap up, guys. A reminder that we have some wonderful products, some wonderful alpha for you. First of all, being the BB terminal. That is your go-to tool this cycle, whether or not you are an active trader, right, using lower time frames, derivatives data, and a myriad of other hugely helpful indicators. We have the go-to tool for you. Whether or not you are a long-term investor looking for data or DCA help to be able to make more informed portfolio or long-term investment decisions, we have the tool for you. And of course, whether or not you are a degen that loves to be on chain, loves to trade meme coins, we will soon have the tool for you as well. And we were nice enough to package the BB terminal with our Discord, guys. So if you need go-to alpha, go-to community, you can get that within this package as well. Both are going for discounted prices right now because you can buy them together. But as you will see, and as you've already seen throughout the course of this year, these prices will go up as the prices of the crypto market go up as well. So be mindful of that. And of course, we also have our holiday special, guys. If you are looking to make a long-term commitment, these are the prices for a yearly membership, as well as lifetime access to all of these things, our Telegram, our Discord, and the BB terminal. Like I said, at discounted rates, but this is the last week that you'll be able to take advantage of this deal if you are so interested. Otherwise, we will just be showing you these prices right here. But we also have the BB Academy, guys. So if you are looking to hone your educational base or reach trading level mastery, you will be able to do that through BB Academy, right? It's always easier to have this education before the market just truly goes into pure euphoria mode. But there is never a bad time to be improving your educational base, as we always say. And maybe all of that applies to you. Maybe none of it does. Maybe you are interested in having the team potentially manage your money for you. After all, crypto is difficult, guys. You want to make sure that you're being long the right assets, which has proven this cycle to be easier said than done, while of course managing any downside risk posed in the financial markets, which we've definitely also seen a lot of that this cycle as well. So we have the solution for you guys. BB Wealth Management, we are an SEC registered hedge fund. If you are interested in having the team manage capital for you, that will be your solution for that. And we have, just like all of these wonderful products, we have more information linked in the description of this video below. Of course, if you enjoyed Market Check today, we will be back for another episode tomorrow, as we usually are. 11 a.m. is our typical start time, Eastern Standard Time Zone. You will get to see all of our beautiful faces once again, talking about charts, markets, and hopefully higher prices. We'll see what tomorrow looks like, guys. Last but certainly not least, we also have Market Talk hosted by the legendary King Wabi. So make sure to stay following his X account as well as the Because Bitcoin X account, so you can be notified not just when we schedule those spaces, but of course also when we go live. That's it from us, though, guys. We hope that you enjoyed the show as always. Shout out to Donnie once again for coming on the show. We have his X account linked in the description as well. There's a lot of very useful information linked in the description below, I have to say. So check that out before you click off the page. Leave us a like if you enjoyed the show and haven't done so already. But that's it. Like I said, thank you again, guys, as always, for tuning in. And of course, like I always say, stay safe.